What steps would you take to ensure compliance with data privacy regulations, then while building like robust solutions?
So I have that luxury and also the burden of having to work with our controls partners, our legal privacy, our data privacy partners on a consistent basis, right? So I get challenged quite a lot. So that's why there's a lot of steps that I think need to be in place, right? So we talked about some of them, but I think it's easier to kind of put a framework, right? You need to start by generating the standards, right? So we actually have like a standard operating procedure in which we say, okay, we are not going to go to see, customer data unless it's aggregated by this metric. And we put like an actual metric. It's like, this is the minimum number of customers we need to see in any metric that is rendered, number, right? Similar with entities. We're not going to share any data unless there's like a minimum number of entities in that entity set, and none of these entities represents more than X% of the metric rendered. So we really are taking like a numeric and clear delineation of what are the minimum requires for aggregation. So that's the baseline. After we have that baseline, then we also adhere to any contractual considerations that we may have with that data. So that way, we of course adhere to contracts as well. And then like, okay, now that we establish what is our solution scope, then you have to think about the data environment, right? So it's almost like, okay, so how do you ensure that those rules have been adhered to? Well, that needs to be locked into the logic. And then there's like a maker-checker process that we put into play where there's going to be a coder that is going to kind of write that logic that validates that we are adhering to our standards. And then there's going to be another coder that's going to be checking that in fact that logic is accurate and is working. And then on top of that, we have like a layer that we add, which is like a set of controls. So on a daily basis, because our products are data products and need to ensure that these products are displaying to customers everything with the right level of aggregation and de-identification. So we establish a set of alerts. So if there is like any issue, like, today we're seeing that the data is off for this particular way, or if we're seeing any issue, then it basically will give us a shout out on a daily basis if there's a problem that we need to get into and troubleshoot. So we kind of have like basically a standard, then like a maker checker process, and then we have like a troubleshoot alerting process on a consistent daily basis. That's the way that we typically do this. I think that the documentation is quite important. So in order for us to deliver products, we need to go through PSEM, so for change management process, and then BIA, new business intake process. So the nice things about it is that sometimes you're thinking about compliance in a strict way, right? We're talking about data privacy, but compliance is a lot broader than that. There's also like, operations. There's also like, are you rendering the features on time? Is the underlying data accurate, or are there problems with the data? Is the data potentially missing? So in terms of what are the checks that we put into place, it's almost like you have a check on first the underlying data level, like is the data integrity, is like, hey, do we have all the data pieces? Then like, is the data updated? Then is the data that is updated, is that accurate? Like, or it seems off, like there's something weird on this data. The values don't make sense. There's thresholds in the values that are quite dissimilar to what we see on the trends. And then on top of that is like, okay, is the logic that we run on the data running? Is the project done? And then does everything seem to be on track? So those 5 things are all kind of automated checks that have different flavors that need to run on a daily basis that help us. Again, does it help for everything? Of course, there's always additional problems that you need to troubleshoot on, but in general, I have seen really great results.
Yeah, I was saying, like, obviously, it's a massive topic. So is there, obviously, you can't have everyone specialising in this. So is it more of like, do you have a lot more like employee like training awareness around these sort of topics? And how would that work?
Yeah, no, that part is key. Yeah, I thank you for asking that. We actually have the whole maker checker process that I told you. So we need to train all of our employees on our standards and procedures, and we need to update trainings. That was for sure on a consistent basis. So there's like a new employee training before if you don't comply with your training, you're not able to get access to the data, right? It's a requirement for your data access. That's to begin with. Then there is ongoing training. Then there's the new technology training. And then there is like kind of different levels, right? So the most senior colleagues can qualify to be checkers of the work. Yep. If you're relatively junior, you can only be maker, but you cannot be a checker because the checker needs to be more qualified, for example.
Okay, cool. Interesting. So lots, always learning.